Patrick Howe and Rich Murray, production designer and set decorator for Only Murders in the Building. Rich, you've been with the show since the beginning, but Patrick, you came aboard in season 2. So what were your thoughts on the show before you joined?
That I had seen a few episodes to interview for the show. When I was interviewing, it had just started dropping, so to speak, and so that was other than the fact I first looked up who now this funny titled show. I don't know what this is about and who's working on it. So first you look for the art department. It's like, oh my God, I've worked with every single person in this art department except the production designer. So I felt right at home already, and somehow I'd heard that everybody wanted to return, which is a really good sign of like that means you had to have fun or there was something you loved about it if you want to go at it again, because all season ones are really difficult to pull off, and if you want to go back, then you liked it. So for some reason, so I watched those first episodes and I was just immediately smitten with it, with the look and with just the earnestness of the show and falling in love with these characters and wanting to hang out with them and be in their lives. And so I really didn't, the murder aspect of it, of who did it, that didn't matter to me at all. As long like I wasn't sort of like, the incentive to watch wasn't about trying to help solve a mystery or see if I could solve it or whatever. It was just about like, these people are hilarious. I love them. I need to hang out with them. And as a New Yorker, well, I was born and raised in LA, but I lived so long in New York. I call myself a New Yorker, and as an Upper West Sider, and just the whole thing, I just felt right at home with the life, and that there was so much theater background, which was all my training was in theater design, and so every single joke was relevant to me. so it was like, oh man. So
Awesome.
I love jumping right in on it, and for a show that you do go into cold, I felt like I fit, or I felt like I knew, like wasn't that foreign in a way. And I think maybe because of my colleagues that I'd worked with on that other shows, or had worked for me on past projects, and I don't know, just like I say, the familiarity of the humor of the show, that I just felt right at home.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
it was
Rich,
pretty.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think it was pretty easy. Having Patrick come in as well. It was a lot of fun, and knowing the show and getting it. It's it was really, and we already sort of, because Patrick and I had worked together before, and everybody had all worked together, at some point as well. And it was great because everybody sort of had the ease and the shorthand in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was designing bunnies, which was the big first project that we did together, and that was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love season 2 because it was just about expanding the world of the Arconia. You have these secret passageways and these elevators and these previously unseen apartments, and obviously bunnies is the biggest one. So what were your initial discussions about that? Like, did John Hoffman, the showrunner, have a particular take on the look of it?
He did, and also so the first thing when he started to tell me about some of these plots points that would happen during the season, and how we would need secret passageways, and that he was going to open the show with some history of the building, and to explain a lot of things, a lot of backstory. And I thought, it was like, so I had a slight trepidation at first, because like I don't know this show at all. I'm brand new starting to it. I got to jump right in, and so sure, my luck that the show is going to be even more about the building, which is what I have to completely plug into. I don't know, anything about the building, and it is, while it's modeled on real buildings, it's a made up situation. So in a way, you could get I could be fed a lot more from the characters than the building, and so I just, for a second, it's like, could I have a break, and like, could this not be so much about the building, but I quickly I quickly got over that. I'm like, well, who cares? It's fun stuff to design. And so then then it was like, just get full on board with, again, designing the bunny's apartment. It was lovely because I did know a little bit about that character, and even though she was somebody that was dead, and also it wasn't even clear that there was going to be an episode that she would be in her apartment. So from the get-go, it's pretty much we were trying to tell the story of this person where the audience knew what this character was like, but they'd never seen her home, with the exception of one little, shot into a foyer of dropping a box off on a table, but like no information there really. And so the new of the set would be used for the first 2 episodes. It was only slated for those first 2, and not even the episode 3 where we see the last day of her life where she is in her apartment. And so I did appreciate that and validated that a lot. But so doing that and doing passageways and other things that are about, the secret elevators and all this stuff that was trying to architecturally be valid for this Upper West Side building, it was all fun to do.
Mm-hmm. I love her apartment because it's so colorful and lived in, like all of the apartments, but it's I guess it seems just kind of incongruent with the persona that she's been presented on the show, especially in season 1. She's kind of like crotchety, but her apartment seems so warm and inviting. She has these like floor wallpapers. Show has great wallpaper. So what went into, those kind of background elements, like Rich, like the set decoration and like all of her tchotchkes and everything and picture frames.
This is something we love to talk about with Bunny in particular, because we sort of baked this into the concept of her. Was the pineapple is a symbol for hospitality and welcome. And so I sort of pushed back on that and saying she's the least hospitable person in the building. So wouldn't it be funny if she had an entire room full of pineapples? And we're like, okay, nobody's going to notice that. Whatever, that's great. And then it came up also that she was like a kinky lady and she's into things like that. And we're like, oh my God, that's so funny, because then the pineapple also fits, because it's also a symbol, for a community. And so we're like, this is really funny now that like her chandeliers and her sconces and all of this is, all about Bunny. And then the editors really just banged out a really great bit for us that I'm always loving, like, to tell the story about what they did with when they opened up our 3 heroes breaking in her vent and into her foyer. Then they immediately cut to a quick shot of a Staffordshire rabbit on a mantelpiece, and then a wrought iron rabbit holding a magnifying glass on her desk, and then a picture of young Jane Howdyshell. So all you had was Bunny, 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 and then they did a wide open shot of Bunny's apartment. So like, and we talk about this all the time, how all of us work together with a team as a team, and it's all these little bits of magic that come out about this character that I put in there and Patrick puts in there. You never know if it's going to show up. Every other show, you never know. And the camera and the editing team and the directors and John Hoffman and everyone are just so into, oh wow, you've done the hard work and you've gone the extra mile to tell that story about this character and what this character is doing through her little things on her shelves. Oh, that's lovely of them, and so gracious for them to say, okay, we'll give you 3 seconds of time now to tell the audience what you've developed as character for her. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a fun show.
Yeah, so I love the Bunny 3 shot. It cracked me up. I was like, this is hysterical. It's like, of course, Bunny has Bunny.
You never see that. And we of course go into this never thinking that's going to happen, but then you see it and we were giggling.
Mm-hmm.
We went ahead and Rich laid all of that out of these elements that would be in Bunny's world, and it was it's definitely not scripted, because in some shows the bold print could be open on a montage collage of rabbit ephemera, but like there was no direction of that at all. It was just what Rich worked out and we started doing, and it's like, yeah, we're totally going to run with that because it makes perfect sense. And if my name or I'd have, I wouldn't even have to have my nickname be Bunny to have I have a bunch of squirrels in my apartment. And so,
Right.
Yeah, and she's
and
someone who's lived there forever, for decades. So it would be filled with a bunch of stuff like that, like
yeah,
years. So,
yeah.
well, one important element in her apartment is like the nook, like the aviary for Mrs. Gambolini, and you guys, I'm assuming, built the cage for Mrs. Gambolini. So what went into
We
that?
bought that. We bought the cage.
Oh, you
And then we
bought
built
it.
the base.
Okay.
We built the base for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly had a lot of augmentation, but like that sort of basic kind of Victorian, element Rich was able to find. And then, yeah, definitely had to make the base. And there's millions of stories about the base, of course, because there was information about,
Yes.
we had little tidbits about there's going to be this painting and this painting is going to have to get discovered. And for a long time, and it was initially about the different places within the bird cage that this painting could be found. And, that so the final iteration that you saw was just one of many places that the painting might be as part of the bird cage. But John had first talked about this. Mrs. Gambolini was this bird that had the name for, and that was gonna be a kind of a character in the show for the season and give out plot cues. And so then I decided that part of this living room really needed to be a tribute to this bird. And the bunny was the kind of person that would, would dedicate this kind of space to her bird, instead of it just being in a random corner of the second bedroom or living in the bathroom or something. It's like you're gonna have a whole shrine to your bird in your main parlor room.
Mhm.
And so I sort of wanted to sort of like give as much focus to that as possible. So that was like creating that niche and the mural and everything around it that was trying to create a little proscenium theater for the star of the show, which is this bird.
Well, what went into picking the color for it? Because I love that like olive green, and it's kind of aged because you could tell it's old. Like, she's had Mrs. Gambolini for decades. So how did you guys land on that color?
For the color for the cage, or
Yeah, and the base, because it's like off
well,
color.
because it seemed to, I mean, the base colors seemed to go with the cage, like it tied to the color of Mrs. Gambolini, to her feather color, and the cream color of the cage, was a nice contrast. Like she would always show up in the behind the cream bars, if you will. So, but I think the sort of olivey tones, olivey greens and golds, just kind of it's not specifically genuinely Victorian, but it's just sort of trompe-l'oeil decorative furniture feeling, that like of trying to be fancy. That she, the character, would do again something fancy like this to honor her bird. That her bird deserves that kind of level of home.
And it was all in the palette too of the entire living room as a whole.
Yeah.
So it felt
Yeah, because
right.
the wallpaper behind is kind of like leafy green too. Yeah. So when did you guys find out that the finale or like the apartment would be the setting of a killer reveal party?
It was much later, that because John really, it seems to be a pattern now after season 3, where these last episodes are really up in the air as to just like they kind of, they know all along who the murderer is, but what the what information they decide to give to the audience along the way, and then the final explanations of everything. Like there's several versions of scripts that play out a lot of different ways, and so that was very late in the game. Like I said, when I was designing the set, I was told like 2 episodes max, and I wound up being in about 7 or 8 episodes total. And I think they liked the set, and it was there, and it was an opportunity to write more material for it. I feel like it paid for itself just in the first 2 episodes anyway, but then it had all these others, and so from a producing standpoint, it definitely paid for itself by by the amount of screen time that was in there ultimately.
Mhm. Was the "We Cracked It" banner written in the script, or was that something you guys came up with?
Now that I believe John had, we usually I mean, it'll be like, oh, we'll need a banner. He might not say what it says at first, but might suggest like, for this party, there should be decorations, including a banner, and like, okay, what do you want it to say? You know, and he'll usually come up with the funniest thing, or else, and if we can't get his attention, then we'll submit things to him, and he'll either like it or he'll go like, oh, that's nice, but I have something better. And then that's the real way to get his attention. It's just to show him, show him make a pitch or a suggestion. But I think he came up with that.
Yeah, I think the banners were in there, were scripted, but we also came up with like the idea of like, is this like a gender reveal party? You know, as weird as those are in that way. We were like, oh, this is how we can do it. You pop the balloon and it says Poppy, or something like that. But it didn't end up having to be that. And it was really wild getting to that for the party, because there's a lot going on in that party. If you remember, they created their own subscript, and then and then the fake murder and everything all happened there. So it really sort of became less and less important as to what the decor was really in there. It was more about cutting tomatoes at some point too.
Yeah, how many tomatoes did you guys have to procure for that scene?
A lot of tomatoes.
I think we went through 30 or 80. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe 10.
Did Steve actually squeeze them? How many takes was it?
Yeah, he really did. And it's always alarming in anything that in that case, the prop master would be tasked with that food. And like Rich had to, we probably had 5 different or 7 different rolling cart options to, for the director to approve, to be the most right it could be for the director's needs. And but something like those kind of props, it's shocking the amount of, if it's a breakaway vase or what, I mean, sometimes or if it's writing a letter, it's like, okay, we need 30 copies. I'm like, 30 copies of this, to write this letter, it's crazy. So I imagine there was a crate of tomatoes or 2 there.
Hilarious. Well, in the 5th episode, you guys get to transform Mabel's apartment into the 70s, just total disco theme. So much fun. I love the shaggy orange, yellow, and red carpet. So what went into designing that and just revamping her construction site type of apartment?
Take it away, Rich, because this is all Rich transforming into these.
It was tough because the issue really was one of budget, and also one of, and we didn't really know how far to run with this in a way, and so I showed it to John. I put a pitch together on a Google slide and showed it to John. He's like, yeah, that's it. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, there's a lot going on here. And it was, but the simple, funny joy of this job is coming back to the script always. It was, this is Martin Short's character walking into a boring party, as Oliver Putnam. And then he decides to run upstairs, grab a bowl of drugs that have just been laying around his apartment forever, and brings it back to this party full of kids, and he's going to show them how to party. Like mind-blowing, right? Like that's the premise. Okay, where do we go? And it was 70s, because we had also already done him in his 1970s apartment, where he didn't have any money, and it was his first party sort of with Teddy Demas and the Son of Sam card game. And then we also had the flashbacks to the 90s, where they were playing the Son of Sam again, where he realized Teddy was involved with the paternity suit. And we're like, oh, okay, how do we make this so distinctly different from those 2 vibes? And it was like, oh, make it what Oliver really wanted the 70s party to be, And then when they walked in with the wardrobe and the hair, I'm like, I'm done. We did it. It's the hair, the bell bottoms, everything came in, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
So it was right pieces here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the orange chairs and everything. It was perfect.
Well, last there, though. Oh, sorry. What we also did there, though, is we also because it was about the drugs, we put as many sort of drug references into the decor as possible. It was kind of funny. So if you go back and look at it, you know, there are pillows with knitted marijuana leaves on them.
These are amazing Easter eggs. Everyone's gonna, I mean, I'm sure the stands have already done this anyway, the eagle eyes fans. But lastly, what can you guys tease about season 3? I know you're both theater nerds, so you must have been in your element since, you know, this one is a murder on stage. So what can you tease about season 3?
Teasing, I don't know how far to go about teasing, but having just finished it and having watched a screening of the first episode where I was, you know, kind of in tears about how wonderful I thought it was, that is just such sort of so many beautiful messages in it. It's a season not to miss, that's for sure. There's incredible work on the stage, you know, on the theater stage. A lot of beautiful scenes there, and a lot of beautiful, you know, in the whole season, you as an audience member, you watch the show they're working on be rehearsed, and so there's extraordinary scenes when the show within the show is being rehearsed in the rehearsal space, which is in this case Oliver's apartment, and so you constantly all the qualities of each of these characters continue to be reflected in the scenes within the show that they're rehearsing, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Another thing I would say is that there's huge and everyone across the board working on this season sort of felt like, wow, this is even bigger and better than the first two. It's beautiful, it's heartwarming, it's hysterical. The cast that they have lined up for season 3 is astounding.
Insane. Yeah.
Insane. And then there are so many big changes in all of these characters and lives, and from our perspective, in all of their apartments, so many big changes.
Yeah, because it's also been a year, so you guys,
you know, and over the course of a year, you know, people come in and out of their lives, and you know, it's a great sort of like, but it all comes back to the script again of like, it's these 3 sort of lonely New Yorkers struggling, you know, to get through day by day and falling in love and out of love, and you know, and it's really poignant and beautiful and yet hysterical. And
I've heard that you wrote actual songs for Oliver's musical New York, New York. So will any chance we can hear those in season 3 or
season 1?
No.
Yeah.
Rich, you can sing a little bit now if you like.
You know them by heart.
It's one verse about, you know, something about New York, New York, and but that was season 1 already. Season 3 has some great songs.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the compositions are amazing, and it's by the top Broadway composers today. So it's really,
it's amazing. The whole season is just like leaps and bounds above what we have done the first 2. So those are your teasers.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to see it. Thanks, guys. It was great speaking to you. Congratulations on amazing season and amazing upcoming season, sounds like. And have a great day.
all right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.